In this extras video, I'm going to go over a few things. One is, what is a Houdini Digital Asset, or HDA? And formerly, it was called an OTL operator type library. So what's with that? What does that mean? Just using presets in Houdini, because sometimes a preset can be much more useful than a digital asset for some simple things. Third is I'm going to talk about what a subnet is. And then from a subnet, we build a Houdini digital asset. So those are the 4 things I want to talk about in this video. Here's the Houdini file that I'm going to be working with. You can follow along. In a way, you don't really need it to get the basic concept if you're taking good notes. So the first thing I want to talk about is just what a digital asset is, a Houdini digital asset. And they used to be called OTL operator type library. The term OTL is still used, but it refers to the folder on the disk where you save the file as a library. Operator type, so it's a type of operator library for operators, for custom operators. And so Houdini digital asset is a term that began to get used, I don't know, half the time ago. I don't know, so many years ago it started to be used. It makes more sense, easier to understand. And so a Houdini digital asset is a custom setup that you made or somebody made or even side effects made that encompasses a lot of other Houdini nodes to make like a big master node. And there's a couple examples that come with Houdini. So I have these 3 examples right here. And on the left, I just have a box. And then this center node is actually a Houdini digital asset. And if I double click and go inside, you can see these all gray scaled out nodes, and you could even click on them and see what they are, and what they're doing and what the output is. So it has a couple of inputs, and then it has a switch down here for switching in whatever the output is. And so we can learn a lot. So, and there's like a bunch of switches in here for do this or don't do that. So if you want to learn what it is, you can do that. But it's actually scaling by bounding box. And so you can actually learn a lot by exploring these digital assets. One thing that you have to be aware of, it could be a danger, is that if I right click on this word center and I go to allow editing of contents, I can actually edit this and I can move it around and change it. The danger is that if I make some changes and save it, that's then now a new part of your Houdini configuration file, your basic default Houdini. And if you make a mistake, like I did at one time, I had to reinstall Houdini to get this node, get the node back, not this node, whatever. So if I go up here, I just went up one level, I can pick on match current definition. And I'll get into more of what all these terms mean later. But doing a match current definition turns it back into gray of uneditable. And so my point is that this comes with Houdini, the center node, but it's actually a node that's made up of a lot of other nodes, and they promoted these parameters down here to control what's going on inside here, so I could have these different centering options. There's another one in Houdini it's a noise node. So I have this simple, like this box set up. The box I'm using divisions on here. If you ever use a lattice, you would you would have to use a polygon type and check on division. So that's used for a lattice. So anyway, I have this box. I have a center node just to center it, and then I have an attribute noise, and all I do is have noise. The point is that if I double click on this and go inside, I can go in here and I got the same thing as the other one. I got all this stuff going on. It's actually using it. I can go in here and explore And what's this? So there's an attribute wrangle node. So if you want to learn a little bit about Vex, you can actually come in here and pilfer that information. And if you want, yeah, the Vex, you could go in here and read what they did and learn something. Okay, so the big point is not the details, but that this is a digital asset made by Side Effects, built out of other existing nodes, and giving you these controls down here. And for me, like this this noise, they did things a way that I wouldn't have done it if I was making one. And so I've kind of built my own. Sometimes I use these, but because it's this custom setup like that of all this stuff, I would have set mine up differently. I could go in there and learn something, why they did it, but I can make my own attribute noise node if I wanted to, and then have that be part of my Houdini, and I could use that whenever I want to. And then I just did some crazy things where I changed the normals to represent the color and flipped it. Okay, but the point is that this is the digital asset. Now here's one I made my own myself, and I took a font and I centered it, and let me template that, and then I divided it, and then did a measure to measure the polygon area and scattered, and then I created this frustum call. So if I zoom out, it looks for my camera. So let me turn on show wall. There's the camera, and so the frustum is the view from the camera, and it chops out anything that's not in the view of the camera. And so this is a digital asset, and I learned how to make this. I googled how to make a Vex frustum call. This is where I learned how to do this. So I basically followed the tutorial. I modified mine slightly separately, mostly the names of the nodes, the names of the Vex variables that he created, just so that I understand what's going on. So I renamed things a little bit differently, just so I pay more attention, I guess. But anyway, I don't know who Short Sweet 3D is. He's got a YouTube page, but there's no name, date, birth, serial number. And so I made a digital asset just following the guy's tutorial. And so I have basically the same controls that he had in his. Now, I can find out where my assets are saved. And if I go to show asset, or show in asset manager, this window pops up, and there it is. It highlighted it for me, and so it's saved in my user Garman documents, jobs, extras, and so I saved this in a place that's really not typical for Houdini. I saved this in a place that's particular for this extras folder. Not necessarily the best place to save it, but it's saved with the project. So if I back up the project, this operator, this Houdini digital asset, is backed up with the project, and that's a good thing. So maybe that's a good reason why to do it. And so these are my assets. Now the Side Effects has digital assets of their own, and so they're saved under Applications Houdini framework. So there's a bunch of other ones that are saved there. I'm going to close that window. If I go down to Type Properties, the very bottom one, and open that up, it'll show me right here on this Switch to Definition. It'll show me right here where that assets is saved. And so remember, I told you I saved it with this job. My job name is GDS-Extras, and so I saved it with the job. And so if I go inside this node, it's pretty simple. It has an input for inputting this geometry of the word, and it has an output of what goes out of the digital asset. And basically this node is me following the guy's tutorial pretty much one for one, except I renamed I like naming all my variables with a my underscore, so I know it's something I made, not something that's default Vex. So it helps my brain stay clear. And so I made that, and then it's got the blast node where it creates a group, and then I kill the blast group. I blast away the kill group. Okay. And so that's my digital asset. But this is basically what a digital asset is. It's a kind of it's a little bit more than a preset, but it's a setup of basic nodes that does what you want it to do. And on the top level of the node, it gives you just the control that you want to have. The second thing I want to talk with you about is what a preset is. And a preset is it's kind of like a digital asset for just one operator. That's my definition. So I have this very simple example that I use quite a bit. So a lot of times when I make teaching demos on something, I'll have the teapot, and I'll have the teapot spin around. So it's something I do over and over quite frequently. And let me look at this from the top view. Okay, so more noticeable if I turn on the grid. So you can see that the teapot is rotating around, not at the center of the object, but not the center of the lid. And so maybe it's doing what it's supposed to do. It's rotating around the center of the whole object, but it's not rotating around the center of the top. And it just bothers me. It's just like irks me. And so what I can do is I can rotate it around this top point. So now when I look at it, it's right rotated around 0, 0, 0 for the X and the Z. And so it's going to be nice and clean, or like Garman likes it, not irritating me or bothering me. So this is like something simple I use over and over again. And so I have a transform node, and the transform node does two things. One, it does the Y rotation. I added a speed control in there, so it's got a speed control in there. And the second thing is that I found the center of the teapot. So if I go to here, the teapot is actually made up of, the teapot's made out of like B-spline surfaces or something like that. If I go to the picker here and I pick to display the points, it shows me that point 304 is the point right on the top. So that's 304 is that point number. And then I can use this HScript function, not an X function, but an HScript function, it'll find the point, and it'll find the point of the Pythonic solid, which is the node right above, and it looks for point number 304, and then it looks for the P, the position attribute, and then it finds the first position attribute, XYZ, which is 0. And then I need the same thing for the Z, same thing, point, Platonic 1, point number 304, point, and then 2, which is Z. I don't need the Y. Okay. And then I put a minus sign in front of that, each one, and so then it centers it. It basically finds that point's X and Z location and zeroes it out. It centers it, so it subtracts the value. So I end up getting, whatever that value is, it's subtracted. It might be some minor rounding error in there. And so I use this over and over again. And because I use it over and over again, I want to build a digital asset, and I will send these files to people. And so here's a good point about why I'm going to show you how I make presets and how I make subnets. Because presets and subnets, the contents of those files, nodes, can be emailed to somebody just as a Houdini file. You don't need anything else. If you have a digital asset, you have to send both a Houdini file and a digital asset. And that person needs to install that digital asset on their local machine so that when they open up the file, they'll be able to read it. And if it's not opened up, if they can't read it, then it's kind of useless. It just gives you these blank nodes. So we're going to make a preset. So we go down to this gear icon. So we select the node, gear icon, and then if I go to the cog, and this is new for Houdini 20.5. This is new for Houdini 20.5, this legacy presets. So I would go save preset, and I save it as whatever name I want it to be. And since I've already saved it, I can go down to legacy presets, and there it is in my list. I have two different presets for my transform node. I got centroid setup, and I got teapot rotation center, which is that. And so it's saved with the node. Now, if I mailed you this file, if you load my file, you're not going to find that preset down there in your list. You'd have to go and make it, and then it'll exist. So you can, any node that you find, you can make a preset out of it. So sometimes when I'm looking through some complicated file, I'll go and I'll select a node and save that node as a preset. And then I can open up another file and I can load that same node in, especially if it's something like Vex with a lot of typing in it. I can load that in. The advantage is that it gives you, I don't have to set up all this stuff again. And then I even made, in my control panel, I even added this speed node in here, so like I can change the speed to 10. And then when it flips, it's going to be, faster or slower, whatever I want it to be. So that's what a preset is. You can edit your own interface by anything you edit in here, it'll remember. And then I can save that. And if I want to turn this node into that node, I just go pick there, go down to legacy presets in Houdini 20.5 and beyond. And I can pick rotate center. And it gives me that same exact setup that I had there. It transferred it to that node. So that's what a preset is. And like I said, it's really convenient, and it ships with the file, send it to anybody, and they won't have to do anything else extra.